Prepare yourself for invasion. This is Indie Invasion.
Hey guys, what's happening? Welcome to a brand new podcast. This is Indie Invasion, where we talk about all things independent in the gaming industry. Independent game developers, independent games, anything you can possibly think of, that's what we're going to talk about. So, let me introduce your hosts. I'm Mac, head of Coastal Con Gaming Convention in Beaufort, South Carolina. And with me, always and forever, is the man, the myth, the legend.
No. Hey guys, this is Eric here. How you doing?
Eric from Black Hoof Saloon.
I'm excited to do this with you, Mac. I feel like it's going to be a learning experience for me because your knowledge is deep in these kind of games.
Deep. That could translate easily to something else getting deep as we sit around talking. But we shall see. So let's start with just a quick intro for the first show anyway, is Eric, how did you get into tabletop gaming? What was it that sucked you in?
Well, I think like many of us, it probably was Dungeons and Dragons, like way back in the day during the satanic, panic scare when, it was bad to get in Dungeons and Dragons. And it wasn't so much the role playing, it was the minis. It was those hazardous to your health, pewter, soft minis that you could buy in the styrofoam boxes.
Yep.
That's kind of was probably my first introduction into like this type of gaming and and miniatures was those miniatures. I thought that was cool as a kid that, hey, I can take these things and paint them. Granted, back then we had model paint,
right. Testers, enamel paint,
the kind of stuff you had to wear rubber gloves and a mask with. But
the big white brush trying to paint the tiny model.
I think that was my first experience in it. And of course, as you grow older, and we had very few hobby stores, so I wasn't exposed to a whole lot. But some of them were, those the cardboard chit type games that Steve Jackson put out.
Yep.
And then eventually, as we got into the 90s, we kind of saw more of the rise of the role playing.
Yeah.
And just being into the geek culture growing up, I was always into Star Wars, so Star Wars had a mini game. So I think that was kind of my roots back then in the 80s and stuff, was that pop culture type stuff. You saw a game that was related to that pop culture.
Yeah, definitely. Mine was the old red box Dungeons and Dragons box set, where you had to color your own dice with the little white wax crayon that they see.
Right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, but really piqued my interest for miniature wargaming was in the mid 80s, I think, that TSR came out with the what the heck was it? I think it was called Battle System, where they first started delving into full-scale war within the Dungeons and Dragons world. And I bought the box set. Actually, my dad bought me the box set, and it was all little chips, just like the old Steve Jackson games.
Yeah.
But it was a horrible game. The mechanics were super clunky. It was a nightmare. But I remember getting that and going down in the basement and getting a whole bunch of bricks and stuff and a big sheet of plywood and setting up my first table and going, oh man, this is it. I love this. And that was the game that kind of made me go, okay, this miniature thing, this got to happen. This is
cool. Well, most of us that know you in the community know you for your terrain too. I mean, is that something that you think kind of got you into like the independent scene or just minis in general?
Yeah, I think so. Because I played a lot of 40K, and I'm not a GW basher, but 40K tables were always super light on terrain. Yeah. They always were. It was a couple pieces of terrain, one in the middle to block line of sight, if you were lucky, and always had to have that if you were playing the Tau or you were dead in turn one. But and that kind of inspired me I wanted more than that. And Wild West Exodus was actually the game that really pushed it over the top for me for terrain. That's how that all happened.
Okay.
So
Why don't we go ahead and explain I mean, you touched on it a little bit in the beginning. What is the purpose of this show, Mac?
All right, so we all know the big names, the GWs and the Cool Mini or Not, and all those big guys that are putting out these great games. And they're great games, there's no question about it. But there's a lot of folks out there that are putting out fantastic games.
Yeah.
But they're small independent guys. They don't have a whole bunch of money. They do when they do miniature releases, it's 3 models. And as the community at large, I want to support that. I want to support these people that are doing it. If I could write rules, I'd be doing it, but I can't. So I just am going to go around and support all these other people that are doing it. So I'm just going to play everybody's game. But in my experience with the large number of independent developers that I have had contact with, it's really nice to touch base with them and watch the passion just bubble out for their game, and then to be able to latch on to that passion and just run with it. And they love it, and they're grateful. It's not that the big companies aren't grateful. They all have their programs. There's the war hosts for War Cradle, and then I don't know what a lot of the other ones are called anymore. I know Malifaux used to, I think they still have one, but I don't know what they were called. So the big companies are thankful for their people too. But when you're one-on-one with that developer, it's nice to see how you can impact the game. And it's amazing to watch people come into the game and discover it and go, wow, this is a cool game. So that's kind of what we want to do, is we're really just going to highlight these independent developers, get their name out there, and hopefully introduce people to some really cool games that maybe they haven't heard of.
Yeah, and one of the neat things I like about the independent creators, and we've experienced this some, is that they're not the big company that you feel like you can't talk to them and say, hey, I have an idea for a scenario, or hey, how about this rule kind of change? And they're very open to hear from people that are playing their games. They're very thankful that you're helping them kind of achieve a dream of theirs. Because I mean, every gamer, every creator kind of starts as a gamer, where they're a dreamer. They want to make something that's cool and fun and thematic, and that your buddies can get together and have fun with. And like you said, they're a little guy. Most of them are working out of their basements or garages, and they have day jobs. This is kind of their hobby.
Yep. That is absolutely spot on. And like I said, they're always so thankful for the guys that go out there and really push their games. So, and how can you not want to get behind that? And like I said, I haven't come across one of them that I would sit down and say, that's a cool concept, but that game sucks. I've never come across one where that's the thought that pops into my mind.
That's because you want more minis to paint.
I always want more minis to paint. And if we can design a game that I can use all my minis in, I'm going to play it. I promise you that. It's the goal in my life.
Well, what we were thinking, me and Mac were thinking, some of the different topics we could touch on is, of course, as we mentioned, independent gamers, the creators in the games. But we kind of were talking about different things we could do with this show, and we're both of us open to ideas. You guys want to hear something, feel free to let us, contact us, let us know. But some of the stuff we wanted to cover is like maybe, a new independent game that just hit the scene, or maybe it's some special sale that one of our established independent guys have. How can the community at large help this guy? What are some of the other things we wanted to cover on the show, Mac?
Well, one of the other things that we were going to cover is one of those independent games is one that has really just struck a chord within our group of folks. And that's Twisted, Minions of the Engine by Demented Games. And so we're going to be talking about Twisted on a weekly basis, or whatever time frame we decide to do this podcast in, however often we decide to do it. Now, it's not going to be a Twisted podcast, but we want to talk about it because, like I said, it's a fantastic game. It struck a chord within us, and it is definitely one of those independent game developers and they're out of Australia. So we're going to definitely do a section, Twisted Talk, where we're going to talk about factions and characters, and we would talk about tactics, but I have none when I play. We'll discuss tactics, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend that you follow any of the stuff I come up with. You might listen to Eric on that one.
No, I'm kind of like you. I like doing the zany story stuff just to do it.
Right. So those are the kind of things that we want to do within Twisted Talk. And then, of course, we're all about supporting the local game stores in any way you can. So if there's anything that we can ever do to help out with supporting game stores, plugs, sales, whatever, we're not looking for anything. What we're looking at is, and this has kind of always been my motto when I go to conventions, when I go to run demos at conventions, I go for one reason. The more people that are playing the games that I love is the more people I have to play against in the games that I love.
He's his own kind of infection. He wants to spread out and infect people.
Right. I'm COVID-20, I guess.
And that's another thing we wanted to kind of talk about is cons. We all know about the big ones like Gen Con. My personal favorite, because it's local to me, is Adepticon. And these are your bigger ones. But we have a personal one, Mac. Okay. I mean, we want to touch on the little guys amongst our, I guess, can we call it a sponsor?
Sure.
It's you.
I will happily sponsor my podcast.
So yeah, like Coastal Con. I mean, they're the small cons. They're not super huge. Sometimes they're only a day. Sometimes they're a whole weekend. So we kind of want to touch on those. So you guys, know about them, know they're coming up, where they are, how you can attend.
Yeah, and what a great way to connect by doing that, hopefully through the podcast, is people that know about these conventions. We know a lot of the independent developers. They're not necessarily close enough to get to every single small con because, like you said, they've got day jobs. Yep. But there's enough small ones out there. There might be one close to these guys that they don't even know about, and just making those connections, creating that web of gamers across the world that are just helping each other out. And just as a side note, since I did sponsor our podcast with Coastal Con, I would like to point out that for our one-day event, we did have more people than Gen Con or Adepticon did their first year.
Look at that. He's like patting himself on the shoulders there.
You know what? I was going to be happy with 30 people showing up. And we had that number, and everybody started telling me that, and I was like, really? We have more than they? I got to go look that up. Y'all are just trying to make me feel good. But it turns out that was the case. So that was actually a really exciting point about it, that sort of a measuring stick, if you will, for how well we did. And of course, it doesn't mean we're going to be a Gen Con or an Adepticon. I'm certainly not saying that. But it was a pretty good start.
Yeah, it was a good start. And I mean, one of the cool things I like about cons, and I actually personally feel the smaller cons are better at doing, is those connections, those community connections.
Yep.
I think about how me and you first met was at Adepticon. I mean, we chatted occasionally here on the old forums for Wild West Exodus, and that's kind of how our first introduction was. Yep. That was years ago.
Yeah, 2017.
And I mean, we went to a con, and that's how we just got stuck together, basically. And we talk about our little gaming group we have through Coastal Con. That's how you met a lot of these people. And then in turn, that's how I met a lot of them.
Yep. And for those of us that don't know us, that are listening to the podcast for the first time, our gaming group that we often refer to is located in Chicago, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia. So
it's kind of like the Bermuda Triangle, right? We
right.
just suck them in.
That's right. We're the Bermuda Triangle of the gaming world. And all of those people, everybody within that triangle, that gaming triangle, met at cons. Every single one of us. That's how we connected. That's how we met. And so that was fantastic. And absolutely, like you said, that's where we make all those connections. The success of Coastal Con's raffle that we had, which was a fantastic raffle. We had tons of people donate. and the majority of the companies that donated were people that I had met at conventions.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's an important thing that we want to cover. And then I think, of course, like with any podcast, we don't want to bore you guys with stats and too much strategy, but we want to have some fun with it, because that's the whole purpose of the show, is to have fun, entertain you guys a little bit and inform you at the same time. So,
and give you something to listen to while you're painting
or if you're
honest, that's what we all do. It's like,
yeah,
by myself, I better turn something on to listen to.
Which has been kind of one of my habits of late, because I kind of started working up here by the computer, and I just pop something on the computer on YouTube and listen to them ranting and talk about stuff, which hopefully we don't get into too much of a rant, but I've been known to do that. And
I'm not much of a ranter anyway, but the other thing too that is, I think if you could, our mission statement would be connecting gamers with gamers. That's kind of our mission statement, and there's no real competitiveness within that. And what I mean by that is, for instance, Eric does the Black Hoof Saloon podcast. I fully expect everybody to listen to that. I've got another buddy that does the Lead Pursuit podcast for Blood Red Skies. Man, you got to listen to that too. There's so many good podcasts out there that we should be scratching each other's back. We should be helping each other out. YouTube channels, Rage Against the Dice, great guy over in the UK, does really great videos. Greg, who does a lot of battle tech and Deep Wars and Shadow Sea stuff, really high quality videos. Cranky Old Gamer, his YouTube channel, just really good stuff out there. Oh yeah, and our YouTube channel too. Probably better throw that one in there too. It's Beaufort Tabletop Gaming, but when I'm allowed to change it again on YouTube, I'll be changing it to Coastal Con, because it originally had, the YouTube page had originally started as our local gaming group, not the Chicago, North Carolina.
Yeah, he slowly expanded and infected, like I said. But yeah, and that's the one neat thing about why I still game, and I'm sure most of us still game, is that community aspect. It's almost too bad that some of us are spread so far and wide, like way
I'm
up
trying
here.
to get everybody to move down.
I
here.
know.
So I'm doing my best.
But well, Mac, why don't we say we kind of cut our jibber jabber and we get into some of our fun stuff we got planned for the show.
All right, let's do it.
All right, stay tuned, guys. All right, Mac, you ready for this first segment in the show?
Yeah, man.
All right, guys. So this segment, me and Mac wanted to do something. It's going to be like our main segment where we're going to kind of deep dive, take a hard look at a certain game, more or less like a series of, so a couple episodes will focus on a game and all the different aspects of that game. And of course, for the first one here, we're going to call it Twisted Talk. And we're going to look at kind of our roots, where as a group, we kind of, that's where we all got together and really started focusing in on these independent games. So
absolutely,
we're going to look at Twisted, Mac.
Yes.
How are we going to start these segments?
Oh man, Twisted.
This is your
minion. This is my favorite, bread and butter right here, man. Servants of the Engine. I'm sorry, it's Twisted. Minions of the Engine. The Servants of the Engine are one of the factions, but yeah, it's really the game. It's the indie game that kind of pulled us all together and started us doing this really big push towards all these independent games, just based on, number one, the passion of the developers really pushed us over the top for jumping on Twisted. I think even you saw some of that, didn't you, Eric?
Yeah.
And the game itself. I mean, the game speaks for itself anyway, but having that passion coming from the developers and watching it kind of grow a little bit, watching even just the Facebook group grow over these past few months as we've put this really big push in. I mean, we're of course, we're not doing all the hard work. We're just doing all the bragging for the game. That's what we're doing. We're the ones out there saying, "Oh my gosh, this game is cool."
So we're basically being the gamer nerds.
Yes, absolutely. And we're saying it as loud and as proud as we can. And so it's generated a lot of stuff, a lot of traction, I think, in the Facebook group. And it really just got us excited about it. And it's a great game. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the steampunk skirmish game, Twisted.
So who is the developer? Let's start with that, with Twisted.
Well, the developers are two guys out of Australia. In 2016, they ran their Kickstarter, and it's Peter Overton and Sebastian Archer, and they are the ones that developed the game. Now, interestingly, I had spoken with Peter and Sebastian about the models and about the Guild of Harmony, which is one of the factions. And interestingly enough, Sebastian, who is a sculptor also, and I might add a really good one, he sculpted a bunch of the Guild of Harmony models, which, if I'm not mistaken, your favorite, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. The all the different avenues of, what is it, like literature, fantasy. I mean, it's a big mix, the game in general.
Yeah, it really is. It's kind of it grabs everything cool out of literature and pop culture and high fantasy, low fantasy, whatever it is. And that's one of the neat things. But Sebastian had already been sculpting the models before the game was actually out. So there was no Twisted game, and he was sculpting the Guild of Harmony. I actually got lucky enough the other day, a couple of weeks ago, actually, I found two of the models. Now, the sculpt's not any different. The mold's not any different, but the packaging was. And they're pre-Twisted models of Maria Poppet and Albert.
That's a cool one.
So I snatched them up just for I've already got the models and they're already painted, but being the completionist I am, I said, "Ooh, look, new shinies or old shinies," whatever they actually were.
That's the collector in you.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
the collector.
Oh yeah, just so I could say this Albert is before Twisted. So I thought that was cool. So that's the developers, and they are now officially Demented Games, and they can be found at dementedgames.com. Fortunately, one of those easy web addresses.
Yeah,
but that's where you can find them, and they do ship to Australia. You can get them in the States, but there's only one distributor, and that's Discover Games, who, as Eric knows, up there, way up in chilly Chicago area, and me down here in the warm South, it's still our game store.
When I got to see you this past February, and Alan from Discover Games brought all his Twisted stuff. I hit it kind of hard. Yeah. And bought just about every box set that he had.
I don't think he left with most of his Twisted stuff.
No.
And that's a fact. So let's just that's the developer information, and like I said, they're passionate guys, so it's a game you definitely want to get into. The Facebook group is pretty active, and a lot of cool
they're
stuff
on the
going
Facebook group a lot.
They are. A lot of the times, if you can get them when they're not asleep, because the time difference is so big for us in America, for them in Australia, and you have a game question or a rules question, you can usually get your answer just by throwing it up on the Facebook group and moving to a different part of the game and then coming back to it. You usually have your answer, and everybody likes that. I've never heard anybody complain about a developer answering their questions.
No, it's a nice change, from some of the bigger companies out there.
Oh yeah.
So Twisted, what is the story setting? What makes it different? We already mentioned steampunk, which most people are familiar with the steampunk.
Oh yeah.
But theirs is a little bit different, and we've kind of touched on it a little bit.
Yeah. So the setting is late 19th century. It's already a steampunk world, but the world has been changed. It's sort of an alternate reality of the world that might have been, kind of thing, where the rules are broken and what shouldn't be possible is possible. And as the back of the book says, this world is twisted. So you have this Victorian steampunk setting, late 19th century. So you're always if you don't like steampunk, bear with us, because you can get past the steampunk part just for the story itself. So you have this engine. It's like a world engine. And it is manipulating things behind the scenes. And if you can imagine through the course of history, all of the large cities and all of the huge cultures that popped up over the centuries, they were all done through the machinations of the engine. And it's this secret thing. Nobody knows where it is. And it's these nodes of the engine extend out into the world. And wherever there's a node, you end up with New York City, Tokyo, Greece, Rome, all of these world powers, these places that were cultural centers, with the engine manipulating things behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, transport yourself to London, the East End, the nasty part of London. And who should discover it but our literary reference, none other than Bill Sikes from Charles Dickens' Oliver Twist. That's the character. So they find one of the nodes of the engine, and the engine kind of lashes out. And that's where stuff really starts kicking in for the story, where stuff starts getting twisted. So for those who've read Oliver Twist, have you read Oliver Twist, Eric? Or at least seen a movie?
I probably have seen a movie. I'm not much of a crack open a book type of guy, but
unless it's a rule book.
Yeah. Even that's kind of work for me.
Well, now you have a reason to. You can call reading Oliver Twist rules preparation for Twisted.
It's like research.
Yeah,
right?
it's research. Absolutely. So basically, Bill Sikes and his crew, they find it. Well, you've got all the characters right out of Oliver Twist. You've got Nancy, who's the matronly woman who takes care of all the street urchins. You got Bill Sikes. He's hard as nails, and he's not too nice to the street urchins. And then you've got Fagin, the pickpocket, he cares for the urchins, but he really likes the fact that they steal stuff for him and that they're good at it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you can't have Oliver Twist without Oliver Twist.
Yeah.
So they find the engine, and the engine essentially lashes out at them when they find it, because they're thinking this is a big score for them. And it lashes out. Well, the repercussions are huge. So Oliver is completely twisted. He goes from being this young, innocent boy to this hulking monstrosity that's uncontrollable, just off the rails, insane, berserker, ogre-like monster. He's amazing because he's in my faction that I play. But we can't tell you too much about the factions yet, because that's for another episode of Twisted Talk. But
exactly.
But Nancy, going from the matronly caring woman, is now she's terrifying. All I can say to you is download the PDF rule book and read about Nancy. She is absolutely terrifying. She's definitely not what she was.
She's a magic user, right, in the game. So they do have a sort of kind of magic in the game.
It's called alchemancy.
Which I love that name.
Yeah,
and I can't say it, so every time it comes up, you're saying it.
Gotcha. All right, alchemancy. Yeah, it's great. It's a really neat mechanic, the way that it works, and we'll get to that in some of the other Twisted Talks, how that works. But it's really neat. It's not really overpowering. It plays a really nice support role. There's a lot of really good attack stuff from it, but on being generally on the receiving end of alchemancy, it's very much has been played against me in very much a support role, moving guys around, making things beneficial for your own characters, giving them buffs. Those are at least what my regular opponent likes to use alchemancy for against me.
Okay. So what do you think makes what makes Twisted different, Mac? I mean, it's narrative, right? It's story driven.
Yeah. And so far I would say probably most people listening are going, "Oh yeah, okay, you just rubber stamped every game I play." Yeah. It's got a little bit of magic in it. It's got a cool story. It's the same thing as every other game. Okay, that's fair. But let's be honest. Most of the games that we all play, even if you play 500 of them like we do, they have a very common elements to them. So what I think really sets Twisted apart is the engine itself. So like we had talked about in the setting, in the background of it is you've got the engine manipulating things behind the scenes. Well, guess what? It does it in the game. So you have the eye of the engine deck. And you got to experience that at Coastal Con, didn't you?
Yeah, that's I think what grabbed me about the game. How you can test your luck, like you want to maybe get some kind of buff or something to help you get something done. Well, that deck is it's like one of the random elements in the game that it could be good for you, but it could also swing the game towards your opponent's benefit. You don't know. You're taking that risk, which I think is a really neat element of the game.
Oh, me too. It's definitely a risk reward kind of system.
Yeah.
I love the example that they give actually in the rule book. So you have the little peons in the Dickensian, the Urkin, basically the transformed street urchins into very nasty little fellows. And they're not really very good at anything. They die rather well. They excel at that, but they aren't the best. So if they're getting attacked by someone who is just a monster in close combat, you would tempt fate and draw a card from the Eye of the Engine deck. And you may draw something that buffs you. You may draw something that pops you out of combat. You just disappear from the table for a round, or you swap places with someone else on the board.
It could be anything.
Or it could be bad. Like your close combat gets even worse because maybe the engine doesn't favor you. And the other really unique aspect is every game has initiative. Either you're going to go first or I'm going to go first. Have you ever played a game that doesn't have an initiative?
No, not that I can think of.
I mean, really, even if you play Monopoly, somebody goes first.
Yeah.
So they have initiative. But in this one, you have priority and favor. So you kind of have two initiatives. And priority means you have what we would refer to as your common initiative. You're going to go first. You get to go first. But if you go first, the other person has favor of the engine. So what that means is a couple of things. They can, number one, re-roll any failed rolls if they have favor of the engine. They can also, if you tie in a close combat or any roll where it's a contested roll, they automatically win the tie because the engine is favoring them. So whatever manipulations the engine is doing, bam, jumps in and you win the tie. Also, with the Eye of the Engine deck, at the beginning of the turn, you get an Eye of the Engine card. Well, he who has favor of the engine gets to keep one of them, so he gets to choose which one he wants. And that is a hugely unique mechanic. Now, those two can switch. You can lose priority and you can lose favor a number of different ways. That's mechanics stuff, though, and we'll talk about that when we get into mechanics. But it is one of the things that really makes the game unique and makes it different. But I think that you hit the biggest thing, and that was, you said probably my favorite word whenever we're talking about a game, narrative.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, when we were first starting to look at this game, and we're talking about, not just the stories that are established by, the developers, but the way that this world is set up, anybody, a fan of the game, can come up with a narrative, which is what we were doing a couple of months ago, coming up with our own scenarios, because it's a game that's very scenario based, and having fun with it. That just drew me in. I mean, I came up with a scenario myself, barely reading the book, but it works.
And you won the scenario writing contest.
Yeah. I mean, it works with the way the system is set up.
Right.
Which is really, that's a cool thing with this, is the story. What kind of story are you going to play today with your models on a board?
Yep, absolutely. And like you were saying, I like to see when the developers get behind that kind of stuff, because we kind of took the initiative, and I did the scenario contest and the painting challenge and all that stuff. I just threw it up there in the Facebook page, but to watch them get behind it just because they're enjoying seeing someone excited for their game, that's kind of the reward unto itself. So for those of you listening to the podcast right now, we regularly do painting challenges and contests in the Facebook group. And there are prizes. There are prizes. In fact, for this month that's about to wrap up, so sorry you've missed this one, but it might come back around. We have a custom neoprene twisted dice tray that the people that completed the painting challenge will be receiving once they complete their painting challenge. So we do stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely something for you guys to go check out. If any of this that we're talking about, the overview of the game, it seems interesting, dive in a little bit more and check out the Facebook group and and their go on their webpage. There's a lot on their webpage that's background of the story too.
Yep.
So
and you can download the rule book for free.
Right.
That's
for free.
Yeah, that's huge. And it is not a thinned down rule book. So a lot of times when a PDF rule book is on a website, it's just the rules. But the one on the Demented Games website, it's the fluff as well. So you get everything. You get the whole story about the game. So you could theoretically even try it out, but if you get 5 or 6 pages into the book, you're going to want to pick up some models.
Which is what happened to all of us.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, all right, Mac, I think that's pretty good for touching on Twisted in this episode's Twisted Talk. So next time, what are we going to look at then so everybody has a kind of a heads up?
Well, next time we're going to dive into mechanics. We are going to have to split up the mechanics, though, because alchemancy is pretty cool and kind of deep. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk basic game mechanics next time. We'll talk about close combat, moving, what dice you use in the game, how those things interact, what the cards do. We're going to dive way into that, and it's going to be fun. You can also, if you want to be prepared and possibly catch us on any mistakes that we make, there is a basic how to play video out on our YouTube channel, our Coastal Con YouTube channel. So you can check that out too, and you can find either the mistakes that I made in the Coastal Con YouTube video or the mistakes I will subsequently make in the Indie Invasion podcast.
Nonsense. You're pro. You're a pro.
I just wing it if it's wrong. I'm just like, yeah, I think that's how it's supposed to. Roll a dice. We'll find that out.
All right. We'll go ahead and get out of this Twisted Talk for this episode.
Phantom Dice, changing the gaming universe, one game at a time. All right, guys, this is where we talk about those little unique games out there that we have discovered and want to share with you. And remember, always, if you guys know of a small independent game out there that we should check out, please let us know. But today, we've got 2 games for you. And first up, Eric, we have Urban Manhunt. Tell us what the heck that is.
Yeah, so Urban Manhunt. So I actually kind of just stumbled across this on YouTube. You know, you come across different creators making videos and playing games. And Urban Manhunt is basically, you think that 80s movie, you know, a sci-fi movie like Running Man. This is very similar to Running Man. Where
a little bit of Arnold, some Arnold.
Yeah, some Arnold. But he's not yelling, "Get to the chopper." And Urban Manhunt, it's in the future. It's a futuristic setting where the manhunt is it's like the national sport. Actually, it's world sport, if I remember right. In the book.
Yeah, it is. It's a world sport, worldwide. It's like it's kind of like the Taco Bell from Demolition Man, where Taco Bell took over the world, all the restaurants. It is the Taco Bell of Demolition Man to this world.
And what's neat about this is it's a game where you're not necessarily battling your other players. So you can have more than just 2 players in it. You can have up to 4 people playing this. And it's more of like you versus the system, where what you're doing is you design a hunter with stats, or you could actually use the pre-generated ones they have in the rule book too, but you can create your own, which is kind of a neat thing with the system.
Oh yeah, that's always a nice thing in a system.
It's what jumped out at me. And the other neat thing is it's mini agnostic, which means you can use whatever you want. You can you got hero clicks. You can use hero clicks if you want, or you can use your old metal minis from 20 years ago. That's
a use for them.
Yeah. I mean, that's a neat thing, that if you see a neat mini, but you're like, okay, what the heck am I going to use this? I mean, I've been lately buying minis specifically for Urban Manhunt that I'm like, yeah, this will kind of fit for this.
And you've been on Hero Forge.
Yes, I have been on Hero Forge and creating some of my own hunters.
Because I'm going to take a shameless plug opportunity right here and say this, that CoastalCon, our gaming convention, actually got a unique hunter specifically for our con, which you designed on Hero Forge, and that was Rooster McCoy.
Yeah.
So the only way you can get Rooster McCoy is to come to CoastalCon next year, because I still have some left.
But let me go over a little bit of what the game is. I mentioned the hunters, and what the hunters are doing is they're hunting down criminals. So the story of this is these kind of like, what is it, like Escape from New York? The criminals are all rounded up and they're put in like this, fenced off area or walled off area. And then the hunters go in there and they hunt them. That is the sport. That's the worldwide sport that the general public is watching. So instead of NFL, they have Urban Manhunt.
Yes.
So that's just a brief kind of background on the story. To go over a little bit about it, Urban Manhunt is designed by Spectrum Games, and you can find their game on it's available at Drive-Thru RPG Games, and what are their other sisters?
Yeah, it was wargamesvault.com,
Okay.
drivethroughcards.com, and drivethroughrpg.com, because you can get the hunters are in the back of the rule book, the pre-gen hunters, but you can get them in card format, which, being a sucker for a card on the table when I'm playing a game, I ordered the cards, and they're nice. They're nicely done. They're shiny, they're gloss printed and sort of in color. The images aren't in color, but I did stumble across, and you may have seen this as well in the Urban Manhunt Facebook group. Shameless plug there. Go join that group, because it's pretty cool too. Is Curtis Fell, who is the owner of Ramshackle Games out of the UK. He is a sculptor, does some really cool sculpts, a lot of post-apocalyptic vehicles and minis and stuff. Anyway, he is hooked up with the creator of Urban Manhunt and is sculpting one model. Now, who knows what that may become?
Yeah.
He may sculpt a few of the other pre-gen models, which would be really cool just for the pre-gens, just to have kind of a model for them. And I believe there's only about 12 of them. Yeah. And I think most gamers can handle 12 miniatures in in their pile of lead / plastic / resin.
Because realistically, in the game or a game, you're using just your one mini.
Right.
The rest of the minis, like I mentioned, are the criminals that you're hunting down. And the way that they have a three different decks that are in the game that kind of determine random events, or like if you eliminate a criminal, well, you're going to have to flip another card to see who gets fed into the zone next to hunt. And it's all based on points. As you eliminate these guys, that's where the competition is with the other players, is who can take out the criminals the most, the fastest, and get the most points in a certain amount of turns.
Yeah, that was the huge appeal to me. I remember, and normally everyone blames me for introducing games, but in this particular instance, I get to blame Eric for introducing me to Urban Manhunt. And
I was like, Mac, you got to check this game out. Check out this game.
He's very proud of himself for that too, since I do it to everybody else. But that was actually what appealed to me the most is, again, going back to that same idea that most of our games have a lot of the same mechanics in them. Shooting or contested rolls or target number, a lot of the same mechanics.
Yeah.
But when I read that I'm not even going to be shooting at you at all within the game, and that I'm using one model, I thought to myself, okay, all right, that's kind of unique. I've got to check this out. And we've gotten a few games in, and I got to tell you, it is a fun game. It's really fast paced.
Yeah, it is.
It's a neat book. The artwork is very
That's retro.
1980s, very retro.
That's what
very
I like.
retro. Yeah, it is, and it's a neat game. I love even the rule book. It looks like it's just done up in neon, and it's great. I love it. It's fantastic. It's very well done. Got lots of good fluff in the book.
Yep.
And you also, even for the miniature agnostics part, you could get away with a model. If you and I were playing, you could get away with one model for you, one model for me, because there are, in the Facebook group, you can print tokens to represent the crims / criminals in the game and throw them on the table. So really, you could get away with just a couple of models if you wanted. And there's also something about solo rules, right?
Yeah, so that's the other neat thing is a lot of this stuff, like we mentioned these card decks and stuff, you can find on their website, print them out, and sleeve them up as you see fit. But then they also have on there these solo rules, so you can play by yourself. Cynthia, the creator, developed these solo rules not that long ago. I think it was.
No, I want to say not more than a few months, I believe, when I saw it pop up in the Facebook group.
Which is perfect for now when we're all kind of stuck in our homes and a lot of places are closed.
Oh yeah,
you can play by yourself. And then also something Cynthia developed were these kind of quick, kind of toned down, not really rules toned down, but toned down in some of the complexities that the game has. And it's family rules, so it's like family game night. You can play with your kids.
Urban Manhunt Family Fun Night is in fact what it's called.
Yeah, and I mean that's you can have fun doing that one night. And I believe, I'm not sure when it's coming out, but she's working on campaign rules.
Yeah,
which I don't know how still that I managed to worm my way into just by making a comment.
Huffman Worldwide.
And what's that's going to entail is like it's going to bring in these corporations. So you think of sports leagues and stuff, they have sponsorships. So that's what they're kind of doing with these campaign roles, is where you put together a stable of hunters that are sponsored by a certain corporation, and then they're going to get some kind of benefit. Funny thing, Huffman Worldwide, they sort of care because they're kind of everywhere. So you might get something positive, but you might get something bad. I kind of like that variety that they're going to bring into the game.
And for those of you who don't know, you would be listening right now to the smooth, dulcet tones of Eric Huffman, President, CEO, CFO, mastermind of Huffman Worldwide, in Urban Manhunt.
Yeah, somehow I don't see the CEO of that sounding like me.
But you are. You did it all, man. You're in all the way. There's nothing you can do about it now.
But that's just kind of a quick overview of Urban Manhunt. If you guys want to check it out, look for them on Facebook. They have a pretty good Facebook page. Check out Spectrum Games. They have lots of downloads that you guys can get for free. Check it out. And there's a couple videos floating around on YouTube that you guys can watch, see played. Battlehammer did a bunch of stuff for them.
Yeah. But not only that, but referencing back to what we talked about earlier, Battlehammer also has a little bit of Twisted stuff up as well.
That's right. Yeah, they did do Twisted.
If you are looking for the non-PG YouTube channel. But they play a lot of games though. So, and they do have Twisted and some Urban Manhunt up there.
Yep. General nonsense. That's what I tell them when I talk to them.
That's right.
All right, Max. So what did you want to take a quick look at today?
Well, I wanted to talk about something that I stumbled on. I want to say it was about 2 years ago in my casual browsing of Kickstarter.
You don't do casual browsing.
All right, I was on Kickstarter on a mission to find something to back, and I did. I found a game from a company called Funky Skull Games. This was actually the second Kickstarter. They had tried to do it before. I say they, it's one guy. He had tried to do it before, and it was not successful. Well, The second Kickstarter was, and I was thrilled. So what it is, it's called Street Wars, and it's 1970s New York City gangbangers. Getting down in the streets, So basically, since we're using movies as our reference for these
You're gonna
games,
say what I'm thinking.
I'm definitely going to say what you're thinking. I'm going to say Warriors come out and play. Yay. Yep.
Yep. Oh,
Absolutely. It is the Warriors to a T. To a T. One-man operation. Now, this one is not miniatures agnostic. He does have a miniatures line.
Okay.
It has several gangs, but only 3 of them are currently in production.
Okay.
And he just ran a Kickstarter, which I may or may not have backed again.
Yeah.
And it was for the 4th faction. So
Okay.
very shortly, obviously the whole coronavirus thing has slowed down his production as well. So probably going to push back the delivery for those. But he has 4 gangs. There's cops involved that are AI random guys, and
that's
they
cool.
can. It's really cool, and it's a tiered dice system. So your stats are a dice type. So you might have a D6 in one stat, a D12 in another stat. So it really just kind of depends on the model itself. So for instance, your leaders are obviously going to be the guys with the highest fighting abilities. So you got several stats. You got funk, that's just awesome. You got funk because it's Funky Skull Games, and who doesn't want to play a game
Oh my god.
that has the company logo is a skull with an afro? It's awesome. Then you have a basic generic skill, your fight, your tough, and your range combat. And like I said, it's tiered dice, so you might be a D10, a D8, a D6, whatever it may be. And as you get hurt, your dice goes down in tiers.
Okay.
That's essentially how you get wounded. It does have a campaign system. You can create your own guys. So it's one of
That's
those
cool.
sort of miniature agnostic games.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can download the card templates. I don't believe he has the rules to download on the website. Not 100% sure of that, but he does have FunkySkullGames.com, the shop where you can pick up the game and the models. And it's a really cool game because it's different.
About how many miniatures are you looking at when you're going to play a game? Like, what's your gang size going to be?
6 to 9.
6 to 9. Okay. Typical skirmish type level.
Yep. And they are what I like to refer to as chunky 28 millimeter. And so they're like, for those of you guys that play pulp games, they're very much pulp style. Okay. So they tend to be, and I don't want to say heroic scale like GW, but it almost comes across that way. The models are a little thicker. They don't have the thin proportions, but they're beautifully sculpted. And I believe that Crooked Dice Miniatures did some of the sculpting. And I won't swear to that, but it's very reminiscent of them, and they do have a connection. I believe you and I talked the other day about what were those models that you got? What the heck were they? Oh, the Clockwork Orange.
Oh, my
guys.
Clockwork Orange guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Those guys actually have cards in Street Wars. So they're some of the extra parts of the game.
Look, I'm halfway there to playing the game already.
See, there you go. That's what I'm talking about. So everything is coming out. There's a lot of really neat stuff to the game. I suppose these days, everybody complains about something. And somebody would probably say, oh, it's gang fighting and everything. Well, that's what all of our games are. Everybody's killing somebody, and it's just a game. It's just a game, but it's a really neat game. It kind of taps into, so the Black Cobras, their leader looks suspiciously like the leader of, now I'm drawing a blank. What the heck was the 80s kung fu movie?
Oh, you talking about The Last Dragon?
The Last Dragon, yes.
Shogun.
Shonuff, yes, there it is. Okay, that's right. Okay, I was drawing a total blank. The leader is most definitely sculpted.
I'm probably going to go watch that movie now.
That's right. That's right. But that's what it is. It's Shonuff. There's no two ways about it. The man is definitely Shonuff. It's a neat game. I encourage you to check it out. Funky Skull Games. Ian McDonald is the developer, and he's out of, for some reason, we can't seem to find games in the United States.
Where's this one out of now?
He's out of the UK as well.
Okay.
He's up in Scotland, I believe, and I'm pretty sure that's where he is, but I won't swear to that. So don't take a trip to Scotland just to go and look for him, because I may be wrong about where he actually lives, but he is in the UK. And like I said, he has another Kickstarter going right now. The games that he has available are the Devil's Advocates, the Black Cobras, and the Mollies. The Mollies are the ones that I don't want to say recently, they were the last Kickstarter release, and it's basically the pink ladies from Greece.
Greece, okay.
Right. They all got pink jackets on and baseball bats and clubs, so they could jack you up. And you would really like the game for one reason. They all have Chuck Taylors on.
Oh, yeah. Now we're talking. Yeah.
That's right. And sporting those Chuck. If they're not wearing high heels in the Mollies, they got Chuck Taylors on. So it's a neat game. And I'll say this about one of the coolest aspects of the game. And one of the things that you can do in game is you can root around. You can, if you're walking down the street with your gang and you get ready to go jump on the other gang, you can break into a car along the way and see if you can find something to beat them with.
Jeez.
You can also tag stuff. So your guys have spray paint, so you can tag stuff and earn points within the battle. So it's great. I've tried to tag stuff, but it requires a funk roll. I think it might be a skill roll, and I just fail every time. So my guys have been spray painting their hands everywhere that they go because they can't seem to get it on whatever they're trying to spray paint. But I thought that was a neat aspect of the game. And again, it's that always something different, because again, you're rolling dice. A lot of similar mechanics. And I think that's the reason a lot of people are able to jump into so many games. I don't think I could ever be that committed guy that plays one game. But it's easy to learn them once you play 3 or 4 different games, because there's a lot of similarities. Yeah. But that, in a nutshell, that's Street Wars by Funky Skull Games. And I did a book review on our YouTube channel too.
That's right. Yeah.
For that. Yeah, a little while back.
All right. Well, that's going to take care of our quick look at our little what to look out from beyond, these little quick looks at some independent games out there. You got any teasers?
I do have a little bit of a teaser. And next time we're going to talk about a game from Osprey Prints the book, but Ganesha Games is the creator of the book. And all I'm going to say is, if you could imagine every Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan movie and James Bond movie smashed into one and put on a miniatures table, that's what we're going to talk about next time.
All right.
You got to tune in to find out what that is.
I was going to say, what?
Old classic flashback games.
All right, in other news, guys, we kind of want to, in this segment, look at a game from yesteryear. Kind of look at out-of-print games, old games, very rare games, whatever it may be, something maybe it influenced you into the hobby. And Mac actually is first up here. He's got our very first yesteryear game. This is a game that you attribute to getting you into the hobby, right, Mac?
Oh, absolutely. This was the one that put me into the miniature world.
Okay.
Not so much the gaming. I was already a red box D&D player before this. But in 1985, TSR released. Going back. That's right. We're going back that far. TSR released Battle System, which was basically supposed to be large scale war, completely compatible with either AD&D or basic or expert Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
So it was supposed to be completely compatible. It had a 32-page rule book, a 24-page scenario book, had a couple player aid cards, came with 2 entire metal miniatures, 2 whole miniatures in the box. Just 2.
Okay.
But wait, hold on. It gets better. It came up with some fold-up figures and your army roster sheets. But here's where it really hit you. Okay, now I don't know how I thought this was cool at the time, but I did, and doggone it, I set these up. It came with over 800 die-cut counters, little tiny cardboard counters of orcs and goblins and kobolds and wyverns and dragons and griffins and everything else.
Man.
And it was a box set, but it was, and that was the first edition. The second edition came out a few years later. I think it was 1989, but that was the one that put me over in the miniature gaming, because I remember getting that box. I already had a bunch of D&D books, all the good ones that I wish I still had, like the original Deities and Demigods book.
One left.
Yeah, I know. All the good stuff the Deities and Demigods book that had Elric in it, that subsequently got removed for copyright stuff.
Yeah.
That one had Elric in it. Boy, I could probably get a mint for that one now. Anyway, that was the game. I remember getting that box, and I went downstairs in the basement at my dad's house, and I got a piece of plywood, set it up on 2 cinder blocks, grabbed a bunch of bricks and stuff, and built a battlefield. And that was kind of the first battlefield I built, first terrain building I did.
Boy.
Threw my 800 plus counters on the table and had no idea what I was doing. Don't think I ever actually played a game of it.
Well, I think a lot of those games that we were first playing in the 80s, it was more fun and to spend the time just setting them up. And then it's like, as a kid, you're like, okay, what do I do now?
Yes, absolutely. I'm not sure if it came with the dice that you had to color the sides on, but that was probably, if it did, that was probably the extent of what I did.
With a crayon?
With a crayon,
and fill it in?
Yep.
You ever think of looking for that on eBay? See if you can find it on eBay?
You know, I haven't looked on eBay, but I'm sure it's out there.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's out there. The only reason I remembered the name, it's that this game seems to have come up very frequently in the past month in conversation for me. And in one of the Facebook groups that I'm in, someone actually posted a picture of his battle systems book, because he was using those 800 chit counters for bases for other models.
So see, there's some old grognards out there still playing it and using the pieces.
There you go. Besides us.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, that's your game for yesteryear.
That is, in fact.
So we'll touch more on some of these old classic flashback games, I think, as we go, and tap into, well, for me and you, a lot of the games that got us going. But if you guys had some kind of old games that, you know, influenced you, email us, send us to them. Maybe we've never heard of them.
Absolutely.
I mean,
we'll buy them probably.
I mean, I grew up in a rural area, and so I wasn't, I had very small exposure to games, but buy them. That's already happened to me with Kickstarters that are reprinting stuff.
I'm
looking at you, Steve Jackson.
Car Wars, maybe?
But that's for another episode.
That's another episode.
What else we got there, Mac?
Well, next we're going to talk about this segment here. We're going to try to talk about cons that are coming up. Obviously, this is a tough one right now.
Yeah.
With Adepticon being canceled and a lot of other cons being canceled as well.
Yeah.
So right now, the only other cancellation I know of, and maybe you know of another one, Eric, but this is the only one that I've gotten word on so far. And it's one that I usually go to in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it's Con Carolinas.
Okay.
And I'm a little bummed about that. It's much less of a miniature convention, more of an RPG convention.
Okay.
But they've always welcomed our little group of guys with open arms to set up our demo tables and run games. Independent games, obviously, is what we run. But unfortunately, they did have to cancel this year.
The only other ones I know that are more board game centric are like Origins. Origins didn't cancel, but they're going to reschedule in when did they say? I want to say October, early October.
Gotcha.
And then, of course, another big one would be Gen Con, which is still up in the air.
Right.
That may not come to like last minute because Gen Con is so huge and it's such a money draw for the city that if they cancel that, that's going to hit that city hard.
Right.
So, but are there any that we know of that are still going?
Well, right now, the nearest one, and that we will actually be at, or at least I'll be at, and you will if you can, is the Southern Fried Gaming Expo in Atlanta, Georgia. And ideally, we'll go there with our Twisted booth because we're setting up to really show off Twisted while we're there alongside Discover Games. And as it stands right now, if you go to their website, which is Southern Fried Game Room expo.com, you'll see that it's still currently scheduled for July 10th through 12th in Atlanta, Georgia. But they do have a little link on there right at the top that says COVID-19 updates, and you can check that out and see if they're still up and running. They were as of about 2 hours ago. So that's about how current my info is on that.
Okay. Well, hopefully a lot of the stuff that's going on in our world kind of simmers down a little bit and we could get back to some kind of normalcy of, getting together with your buddies and playing games or getting to these cons and, reuniting with friends that you only get to see maybe once or twice a year.
Because solo games are fun. And hey, man, props to all of the developers out there that are throwing out solo gameplay rules, just throwing them out there, and they're super beta versions. As a matter of fact, on a independent game note, Burrows and Badgers, the creators of that game, just I want to say day before yesterday threw up some solo play rules for their game. The creator, he said, I haven't even tested them yet, but here's what I thought. Try them out and let me know, just to get stuff in people's hands so they can play the games that they love. And gonna be honest with you, most of that stuff's coming from independent game developers. And
it's nice to see that these guys taking that initiative and doing that. Because they know it's a hard time for people to play, and I mean it's generally already we have a hard time playing with our little men. You get the shelf of shame because because we just keep buying them.
That's right. And can't schedule. I mean, just try to schedule an RPG session. Nobody's available on the same night.
All right, Mac, I think that's going to be about it for our first episode, right?
I think so.
Okay.
Pretty happy with it. How about you?
I'm pretty good with it. Something that we wanted to do at the end of our shows is give you guys some kind of hobby tip or just what we're working on type thing. Maybe you guys might want to check it out. Today, we're going to, I think, touch on what's on your desk. So, Mac, what's on your desk today?
What is on? Well, that is a loaded question all day long. It's a good thing this is a podcast and not a video. What is on my desk? Well, right now I'm working on some Drowned Earth models. I have some Free Blades models. And I also have a few other sprinkled in models over there. I've got a little bit of Twisted stuff on the table. And I'm also in the process of building some terrain. I'm working on a large modular library.
Wait. Mac building terrain?
I know. It's unheard of.
Most
I just
people
can't control myself.
Yeah, most people that know you, you're a terrain guy. So
I can't help it. I get an idea. Sometimes I get an idea. I kid you not. I have gotten ideas. It'll be 11 o'clock at night, and I'll get up out of bed, and my wife will go, "You just had an idea, didn't you?" I said, "Yeah, I got. If I don't go put glue on something, I'm going to forget what it is." And I'll only go downstairs for about 10 minutes, but it's enough that I can put a little corner together so that I remember what the heck my idea was. Well, what about you? What do you got on your desk?
I have a bunch of different stuff too. So I've been working on Drowned Earth lately because that's kind of our little group's push that we're doing on Coastal Con Facebook group.
Yep.
So I'm putting together some dinosaurs right now for Drowned Earth. What else am I working on? Yeah, these big old monsters, which, what's kind of cool is I'll probably end up using them for other games, I think, because it's a dinosaur. You can bring dinosaur and other stuff. But then I got a couple of weeks ago, I ordered minis from a kind of fairly local store to me. Had a bunch of Crooked Dice Games miniatures. So the first ones I saw were these Mad Max, heroes of the wasteland and villains of the wasteland. Oh, how can I resist a Master Blaster mini? So
you can't, clearly.
No. So I got those guys, and we already mentioned I got Clockwork Orange guys. I have Planet of the Apes, Gorilla Soldiers, and then my favorite, which every time I look at them, is my Banana Splits minis.
Yes. Next time I may make you sing the song once you get them painted.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'll do that as I'm painting them. I'll sing the song. But so those are some of the minis that I got on my table that I'm working on. Next time, maybe we'll have a cool hobby tip for you guys, something to help you guys work on your minis or give you an idea of, hey, I never thought of that. Mac's good for those.
Sometimes.
Well, I'm still marveling at the toe clippers.
Yes. Well, but don't share that one yet. That's a good one.
We'll tell them about that later. But
I'll even share the source of where I discovered it, because as much as I'd like to take credit for that one, I saw someone else do it. On a real quick end note there too, Crooked Dice has its own game too. 7TV. Something worth also looking into in the future.
Yeah, we may have to dive into that one for a Phantom Dice news.
Absolutely.
Quick blurb. But that's going to about do it for our first episode, guys. If you guys like the show, got some comments or some questions, contact us at our email. We have an email at indieinvasion@gmail.com. And also, where else can they find us on, say, the interwebs?
Well, let's see. They can find us on Google Play, Podbean, which that's our main spot.
I'm going to count them because I know you bombed the place.
We are also on Pocket Cast, TuneIn, Spotify, already hit Google Play, and
iTunes.
And I think that's all of them that the podcast is on.
Stitcher.
There you go. I knew there was another one.
So that's like 7, 8.
I lost count. 7 or 8. And of course, you can always hit us up on our Facebook page for Indie Invasion. We have a Facebook group for Coastal Con, which is a constantly active group for our convention. We like to keep it relevant and active for what's going on, as we're probably safe from COVID for canceling our convention, since we're not until February 2021. So we should be reasonably safe from that, I hope. But we have, that's what I had. We have the Facebook pages. The YouTube channel.
YouTube. Okay. That's where I was going to go.
That's where you were going. We've got the
YouTube.
Coastal Con YouTube channel. But now Eric didn't know I was going to do this, so I'm just going to slip this in on the end. Boy. You can also check out Black Hoof Saloon on Podbean and on YouTube, because that's Eric's other podcast channel. And if you like Wild West Exodus, you need to check that out, because it's a really good one. Wild West Exodus won't ever make it here, though, because War Cradle is a machine of game manufacturing. They are definitely not an indie game company.
They're a little bit bigger, but
yes, they are.
If you guys want to listen to me mispronounce everything, there's a show for you to look. Granted, I'll probably do that here too, but I would appreciate the listen there. But yeah, go check out Indie Invasion, all those places. Check out some videos on the YouTube. Email us. We want to hear from you guys to see if you guys have any ideas for us. Maybe it'll help shape the show. There's a lot of independent gamers out there that we probably have never heard of. And it's one way to help these guys with their games is to find out about it and, help introduce it to you guys that are listening. Because there's lots of great games out there that I'm
absolutely
just, discovering now. So, but I think that's going to be about it, Mac.
All right. Well, you know how we're going to end this show, and it goes just like this, you guys. Prepare yourself for the next invasion.
All right, guys. Take it easy.
I'd say that was overall pretty good.
Yeah. All right, and here we can enter your goofy music that you
There you
put
go.
in.
Go ahead, do it.
All right.
I want to hear you mouth it. Boom.
Boom, 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 boom.